Hello and welcome to Barnabas's Boneyard. I, of course, am your host, Barnabas. Welcome back to episode 4. Today, I'm going to be discussing a brand new series that just came out on Amazon Prime titled Swarm. Now, I actually had no idea that this show even existed, to be completely honest. So, shout out to my wife for telling me all about it. She just kind of randomly brought it up last Friday, I believe, which was coincidentally the day that this series was released on Prime. So, I guess it was just fate that brought me to it, and we ended up watching it over the weekend. Pretty much binged it. It's very easy to do. The show is only 7 episodes long, and they each clock in at around 35 minutes or so. So, if you've got a free weekend, it's incredibly easy to just kind of binge this show, just rock through it. And it's a pretty easy show to do it with. I'll be completely honest with that. But before I dive into my analysis, let me just kind of give you a background about the show. So, the series is created by Donald Glover, who, of course, is in the ever popular cult comedy series Community. He also did, in my opinion, the very underrated film called Mystery Team. And I have a soft spot for that movie. It's almost kind of like a guilty pleasure for me. I really enjoy that film. And that movie in particular showed just how much of kind of a dark side Donald Glover has. And this series just like expands that tenfold, to be completely honest. It's a pretty crazy show. If you watch it, you're going to see exactly what I mean. But he really pulls out all the stops with this one. It's a surrealistic slasher nightmare about obsession, about the music genre and how it connects to fans. And it's very cool, but I had no idea Donald Glover was even making a show, to be honest. So that's on me for not really keeping track of that, I guess. But he is the creator. He wrote a few episodes. I think he directed the first episode and probably some other episodes. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to really look, but crazy guy. Crazy guy. Of course, he is also better known as his alter ego Childish Gambino in the rap scene. So he is clearly very well integrated into the overall entertainment spectrum, and as a musical artist as well. I think it's important to have somebody like that holding the reins of a show like this about the music genre, about obsession with certain musical icons, if you were. So there's that. I'll go into what I think about the sort of direction of the show, but the series is about this girl named Dre, who is absolutely obsessed with this fictional musical artist named Nija. Now, if you even just watch the first episode and you have any type of awareness about, pop culture in the real world, you will be able to tell right away that Nija is very much reflective of Beyoncé in particular. She's got similar style music. She is, has these very extravagant outfits, films these kind of sensual, very creative, star-studded, music videos and everything. It just in her movements and her overall wardrobe, her look, it's very similar to Beyonce's. So I believe my wife also agrees that this Nija character is supposed to be reflective of Beyonce, and Nija in the series has this fan base who call themselves the Hive. And Dre runs this Twitter account called The Swarm, I believe. So I don't know if it's just supposed to be a play on the Hive. For a while there, I thought that the fan base was called The Swarm. Obviously, the show is called Swarm, but I think it's Dre's like kind of fan account. So anyway, she runs this Twitter account, absolutely obsessed with Nyjah, like I said. And the series really begins with her like spending a whole bunch of money that she doesn't have to get like very like near stage tickets to a Nyjah show, and surprises her best friend, her childhood friend, with these tickets, um, or wants to anyway. But of course, there are a lot of other things going on in her life. She's struggling with money, as I mentioned. Her and a friend are living in this apartment, not like in squalor, but they're, and I don't know, I won't necessarily say that they're struggling, but they're not exactly like upper middle class or anything like that. They're grinding day to day, kind of living like paycheck to paycheck essentially. So the struggle is real for them, and she's out here blowing money on these Nyjah tickets. And there's also something a little odd about her, a little off. She's kind of quirky. You see that. But later on in the first episode, you realize just kind of how off she is, and just how passionate, I guess, her obsession is with Nyjah in particular. So she has a very, very strong attachment to this musical artist that she's never even met, but through her music, through her whole kind of public persona, giving off this air of almost like majesty, godhood, practically, right? Which a lot of musical icons kind of elicit that sort of response from a lot of people, because they seem to be kind of larger than life. She is just absolutely infatuated with her, to the point where she would, in fact, kill somebody over her favorite artist. So just by saying that, you can kind of maybe see where I'm going with this. Dre is a little mentally unhinged, and you see that early on. I don't want to give away spoilers, but all I'm going to say is this: the series really is about her kind of journey to see Nyjah, and also her interactions with a lot of people, as she slowly unravels, and she does kill people. So she's really one of the more prolific black female serial killers that we've seen in media, really represented in media, which is really impressive. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that it's taken this long to happen. I'm sure there are others, and forgive me, I can't really think of many right now, but at least in the modern age, she's probably one of the more prominent examples of that archetype right now. So it's very interesting. I guess you could kind of call her a slasher. No, she doesn't really like go around wearing a mask or anything, although in a way she kind of does. So all I'm gonna say is that episode to episode, she is essentially on the run because of her crimes, and she dons like different names, and with those different names, kind of different personas, to try to blend in and create this sort of unique identity to not be found out. So yeah, I mean, as a slasher, it kind of works, except of course the formulaic slasher doesn't actually feature the slasher all that much. It follows somebody else. So this series very much follows essentially the antagonist, which is pretty unique. We see that from time to time, but I mean, especially in these more like true crime derivative series or films like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, or Dahmer, and movies like that, like all the Ed Gein stuff. But so this is kind of similar to that. You're not really supposed to be made to feel sympathy for for Dre too much. Honestly, I mean, she's pretty batshit crazy. So I guess in that sense, there is this thought like, okay, well, what's the whole point of this? And I don't really think the point too much is really about Dre. She is a very interesting character, great character, and like I said, the fact that she is a black female serial killer represented in the media is pretty progressive. So good on Donald Glover for choosing to tell that story. But her actual character isn't really as important, I think, for this story, like for what Donald Glover is trying to portray. A point in fact too, because she doesn't really grow too much over the course of the story, and that was one of my biggest gripes, I think, with the series, is that she doesn't really grow too much. She, like every episode is almost like this, like monster of the week type deal, where she's in a new place, she has a new name, and she's trying to do something different. She's trying to run away, but she's also running toward the very thing that is triggering her like maniacal murderous tendencies. So in that sense, she's not really growing too much, because she's just, again, going toward the very thing that is kind of fueling her obsession. So I would say that that's kind of my biggest gripe with this series is like how that character develops. But again, in the sense of, is her journey really the point? No, it's more so about, I think, the message of like the glamorization of celebrity icons, especially like musical icons, how some people can take that too far, especially people who, may already be kind of on the fucking outer edges of life, right? Who may have some type of mental disorders and things of that nature. I mean, obviously we have seen that in real life, with like Lennon being shot, for example, things like that. So I think it does a good job of portraying that message, and it also does a great job of like bringing us alongside Dre's mental decline, because as the series progresses, the show just gets like more and more surreal. The imagery gets more surreal. It's difficult to determine what is real and what isn't real, which I think it is done really well, and it's done in a slick way that I don't think makes the audience member feel dumb. It can be confusing for certain, but it's again one of those things that has become prevalent in horror pretty recently, where the filmmakers kind of leave it up to you to decide what's real or not real, or what is happening, right? But yeah, there's cool little things interspersed. There's like, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but Dre will see kind of dead people. That's not really a huge spoiler because it's very vague, but you'll see what I mean. And then, of course, it's just the whole matter of like, things are happening. There are scenes that may or may not actually be real, or maybe partly real, but not represented completely accurately. Like there may actually be something else going on, but we see something else. You know what I mean? So it's not like trippy in the sense of like Beyond the Black Rainbow or something absolutely like batshit psychedelic like that. It's not really quite like that. But the visuals, everything, the camera work looks like it was filmed on film, and it has kind of like almost a box, not quite, aspect ratio. I'm not really sure. I probably should have seen like how this was shot beforehand. I apologize for being a little unprepared with this one in particular, but Visually, it looks stunning. I think the way that Glover and cinematographers and all the other episodic directors frame the shots is really smart, and I was really enjoying the visuals overall. I really have no problem with the cinematography, any of the framing. Um, the kills were all smooth. The effects are great. The effects feel very natural, is what I'll say. And the sound and everything is phenomenal as well. Of course, to be expected from Glover, and the acting is absolutely on point. The best thing about this series, in my opinion, apart from the messaging, is Dominique Fishback's performance as Dre. 100%. She is simultaneously goofy and awkward, and then also uh, like menacing and ruthless and deranged. So she really runs the gamut of all these things, which is phenomenal. And yeah, she does a great job. Supporting actors, Chloe Bailey as her best friend Marissa is also great. And those are the two most prominent characters in the in the series. So kudos to them. Of course, many people will probably also be aware that Billie Eilish stars in the series. Now, I honestly am not too sure if she has done any acting prior to this, but she is in episode 4, I believe, playing kind of almost like a Nixum, if that's how you pronounce it, type cult leader. And I think she does a pretty great job as well. And if you haven't noticed, like, the series is very female focused. Like, most of the men presented in this series are kind of pieces of shit, excuse my language. And I think it's also pretty daring to take such a female centered approach to this series, especially a lot of women of color, so I think it's done very well. I think it's done very well. And what else is there to say? I mean, I've kind of already given my gripes, So the biggest one, like I said, is just Dre's characterization. I really liked everything else about it. It's funny at parts. It's got that kind of like nervous humor almost, because Dre just is so all over the place that sometimes she's funny because she's so damn awkward and doesn't know what to do in certain like social situations. And then at other times it is terrifying because she can like snap like that. And her like tendencies are just crazy. So, if you ever met somebody that you feel like could just like go off at any moment, that's her character. And that's where a lot of the horror, I think, comes through. And just in her obsession as well. You also get these little moments where you hear these like bees buzzing. It's part of the whole like beehive swarm motif. And you just feel like that's almost like an indicator that something is about to happen. Something crazy is going to happen. And sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it does. So I really like the overall approach to this series. I like what Glover does, taking us on this sort of like cross-country journey with this absolutely unhinged person, essentially chasing after her obsession, her icon, the person she like most wants to be with or potentially be, and see and just experience fully, whatever that means for her. And of course, following like a female focused cast, women of color, people of color in general, and creating this blend of horror and comedy and drama in a pretty effortless way. I'll be completely honest. So I think overall it's a success. The surrealism and everything is also done well. So apart from a few minor things, I think this series is absolutely worth watching. I do recommend it. If I had to give it a star rating, I think I would probably overall give it a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's very good. Definitely above average. I would have liked to have maybe seen more horror, actual horror elements, but I do understand that maybe he wasn't trying to dive fully into horror. I mean, obviously this is not your conventional slasher character masked and stalking people and all that. I mean, in a way she does, but not conventional by any means. So I guess in that respect, maybe, you know, I shouldn't be desiring those sort of things, because I don't think that that's what this series is ultimately meant to be. But I think I still would have liked some more kind of defined, like focused horror elements. But overall, very good. So that's my take on Swarm. Again, if you have Amazon Prime, you can check it out, and I do recommend it. So go see it. If you've already seen it, leave me a thought with your comments. Otherwise, if there's anything else coming out that you all would like to hear me and see me review, then please drop a comment. Let me know. Also, I do have a new review up on De Facto Film Reviews. I decided not to make a video for it just because I'm going to be pretty busy this week, and I decided that this one takes a little bit more priority, mostly because, you know, I enjoyed the series, and I also haven't done a show yet on this platform. It's just been all movies, but the new review is about a movie. It's the Boston Strangler feature on Hulu that's out right now. I think that also just came out over this past weekend. As of this recording, it's March 21st. So I think both of them, if I'm not mistaken, came out March 17th. Swarm and Boston Strangler. Boston Strangler I found to be okay, pretty average, but again, that's on defactofilmreviews.com. I will post a link to that down in the description as well, just in case anybody is curious about that review. Otherwise, as always, I will be back pretty soon with another video, more content. We should be having a new episode of Grave Discussions up relatively soon as well. We'll be talking about Scream 6, which is extremely exciting. But yeah, until then, if you want to see more, then please subscribe, follow, you know, hit the thumbs up, all that good stuff. And I will see you very soon back here in the Boneyard.